So my name is Carolyn Keller, and I am the founder of Curio 412. And we've been running these next step sessions for probably the last year. We started around COVID as a response to help organizations continue to move forward during a challenging time, to be able to share their difficulties and successes. And as we've continued to keep these sessions going, they're just a free forum for people to come together. So I appreciate all of you being here today, and just thank you for your time, and hope that this is going to be a valuable session. As we went through last year, I talked to a few people who have been attending these sessions and said, what are some of the things you want to see? And one of those things ended up being a discussion on corporate and local business sponsors, and how do you build those relationships and have a good community presence. And as I thought about that, I thought, what better way to do that than to bring you the business owners themselves and have them share their experiences with what they've seen and done as they've worked with nonprofits and worked within their local communities. So we have three business owners with us today, business owners and business managers. We have Steve Deal from Create a Legacy, Lou Meyer with the Davey Tree Expert Service, and Jesse Tate with Enspra. And I'll let each of them introduce themselves more fully so you have a better sense of what they do in just a minute. But to get us started, I wanted to ask, if you're on us with your video, raise your hand or use the little raise hand symbol whenever you look at the reaction button. But who has ever received corporate funding or sponsorship for their organization? So raise your hand if you've received corporate funding or corporate sponsorship. So I'm seeing a lot of hands, seeing a lot of thumbs up. So we have a lot of people who have worked before with a for-profit organization. That's fantastic. And in 5 words or less in the chat, just type in, what's your biggest challenge in reaching corporate partners or corporate sponsors? I've heard a number of different answers to this, but I'd love to see what you all are thinking in the chat today. So we're typing in our challenges for getting corporate sponsors in the chat, 5 words or less, just getting a sense of what types of things we're struggling with here. We've got one, we have located in a rural area, not many large corporations, finding a sponsor interested in our mission, locating and connecting with them. Yeah, and there's a lot of challenges that come up when developing these partnerships. And as I looked at our registration for today, I realized that we had a couple of things that I wanted to touch on before I turn it over to our panelists. One is the concept of selling your organization. I know when you all registered, you probably answered a question of what do you do to sell your organization? And got a number of different answers, from having personal connections, using your network in order to find those connections, things like having literature or paper. And so when you think about selling your organization, I also received some answers that were along the lines of, well, it's just good business to associate with us and to be with us too. And all of those things are very true. And you should be using and leveraging your connections to build those contacts and build those relationships. But when you think about selling your organization, you also need to think about it from a value proposition standpoint of what does your organization have to offer a local business, and how does that partnership really leverage the strengths of both your organization as well as the mission of that business and the goals of that business owner. So when you think about selling, always think of that value proposition. And our panelists, I'm sure, will talk about that as we get into today too. The second thing that I wanted to touch upon just from our registrations was we did have a few questions that were asked initially that were around things such as how do we get a organization to sponsor our mission, or how can you, the business, support our project or mission? And the other questions just like what can we do to secure sponsorship with your company? And so to all of those answers, thinking about that value is really key, because when you think about selling your mission, your organization does good work, you know that your organization makes it makes the community a better place. But you also know when you're partnering with a local business that you're bringing some strengths to the table too, and being able to understand what strengths your organization brings in addition to the impact you make in the community is going to be really key to communicating with a local business and to gain their support and to continue to build that relationship and to think of it as a long-term relationship too. You're not just building something that's going to last for, say, one event and then you're moving on. You want this to be someone who ends up being like a reoccurring donor for your organization and a big supporter of your organization. So with those couple of thoughts, you didn't come here to hear from me. So I'm going to turn it over and I'll ask Steve Deal to introduce himself first as one of our first panelists, and we'll just go down the line and then we'll start off with a few questions, and then I'd love for you to put your questions in the chat. So feel free to put your questions in the chat, raise your hand if you have one. I'll be moderating this whole time and we'll try to get all the questions in that we can. So Steve, go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do with Create a Legacy.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you for asking me to participate in this this event today, because it's something near and dear to my heart. For those that may not know me and Create a Legacy, but one thing I'll share just as a quick side note is I'm actually working with Carolyn on building a nonprofit as well, and that's a whole nother topic. But Create a Legacy is something that I started as a brand in connection with, partnered with a network marketing company called Isagenix. We offer health solutions and wellness. It's weight loss. We're a shake company. And really, for years prior to jumping into that, that arena as an entrepreneur, I had spent 30 years working in IT, corporate America. Also really focused 18 years of that time in the cybersecurity space. I also have a cybersecurity consulting company. And then the Create a Legacy really is my passion and really my vehicle in partnering with Isagenix to be able to set my family up, pivot my family from really being dependent on working 9 to 5, looking for that, that satisfaction, that fulfillment, chasing kind of that American dream and really not getting that fulfillment, but really setting it up so that it's a matter of tapping into what are your gifts? What are you really good at doing? I have a 16-year-old son, going to start his junior year in high school. And so a lot of questions are like, well, what do you want to do? Where are you going to college? What are you going to do? What's your career going to be? And what I've been telling him is, don't think of it as a career. Think about what you're going to be doing next. Particularly when you're a teenager, think about what you're doing next. Thinking of a career is a long time vision. But then Create a Legacy, it's a platform that's going to, not only for my family, but also for other families, to be able to show people how to either create a primary income stream or a secondary income stream that's going to allow you to be able to really, from a financial standpoint, not have to worry about money, not have to worry about, okay, do I need to work extra time this week? Do I need to put in overtime? Do I need to find a secondary job? Okay, I need to cut my expenses because we want to go on vacation. Being able to stretch and be able to look beyond just a primary income stream, a secondary income stream through, using the network marketing model and a direct sales model, and then being able to, if you choose to, and my long-term goals are to be able to create enough income with that vehicle to be able to say, you know what, this can support my family. And by the way, it's setting us up so that future, we will be able to truly build the life that we want to be able to do, because I think that's something truly important. And from a fulfillment standpoint, being able to create the life that you want to live on your own terms. So that's Create a Legacy. And it's the idea that we can truly create our own legacy, whether it's financial or just a lifestyle, and being able to create a legacy with our families.
Thanks, Steve. Lou, how about you? Lou's joining us from his car today down in the Baltimore area.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Carolyn. Yeah, I'm joined you from my car. I'm an arborist with the Davy Tree Expert Company. I'm actually a regional business developer, and most of my job is driving around. So my car is my mobile office, all except for 3 days of the month that I'm sitting in a physical office. But no, I'm a regional business developer with the Davy Tree Expert Company. I am in Baltimore. We have a large presence in the Pittsburgh market, as well as all of North America. We're all of Canada and all 50 states. Everything from tree pruning to removal to plant healthcare services, environmental consulting. We have surveyors we were talking about earlier that survey wetlands, and we have drone pilots that pilot drones along transmission lines deep in the forests. Pretty much anything that has to do with trees and the natural resources we're involved with. And one of the reasons I'm here today is because where I am in the Baltimore region, we partner with a number of nonprofits to build our brand and build our communities. And that's how I got to know Carolyn. And she said, would you like to be involved with this? I said, absolutely. Anything I could do to help out other organizations. So today I'll talk about things that we do here locally, and then I can expand a little bit upon what we do nationally as a corporation as well. But thanks for having me.
Thanks, Lou. All right, and Jesse, I'd love to hear more about NSPRA and how Jesse started an organization during the pandemic. So I'm very excited to have her with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So NSPRA is, we do disinfection, we do long-term antimicrobial nanocoatings, which help to prevent the spread of disease on surfaces for up to 90 days at a time. We also do surface testing. Mainly we do that for the government. And what we do is we evaluate cleaning practices that organizations are already doing and then evaluate the efficacy of that. So we do that for the Port Authority. We work with a lot of municipalities. And honestly, like one of the reasons that I started NSPRA was to help the community and help them get back safer. And I did more research than anybody would care to know on products. And so that's kind of how I got started here. But we do a lot of work I actually do work with some nonprofits on that. So I owned a home inspection company prior to this and had to shut that down during the initial shutdown of the pandemic, and then created NSPRA as a kind of essential business and have kind of gone through with that. So we work with long-term care facilities, we work with school districts, transportation companies, like I said, municipalities, government entities. We even do houses for people that are immunocompromised. And like just last week, I had somebody that had C. diff and was in the hospital, but couldn't go home until everything was safe. So we went in and did a full decontamination, which was nice for the family too, because then they could come in and take care of the poor dog. So I did have somebody come and wash the dog. We don't spray animals, but so that's kind of, what I'm doing here. And it's been kind of an interesting journey over the last year, because I started from like literally nothing, just an idea, and I had an ozone generator, and then ended up creating this business that's now, fairly profitable. So it's been an interesting journey, and last week was our 1-year birthday. So yay, NSPRA.
Awesome. Well, the first question, and I'll let each of you jump in as you want, is why does your business give back? So you've all touched upon the fact that you either work with nonprofits or have something of a charitable bent with your organization. Why would you say your business gives back?
I guess I'll start. I try to work with a lot of nonprofits, and I try to be very charitable in what I do, between donating my time and actually donating some of our services to helping people. I've been trying to partner up with a few nonprofits in order to get a little bit of additional presence, social media presence, in exchange for helping them and by donating some money and time back to them. The reason that I wanted to do it was I actually grew up very impoverished. And so being able to now live in a nice area and, be where I am today, I feel the need to kind of give other people a help up as well. And so that's kind of why I, wanted to get involved. And, with what we do, in helping to stop the surface transmission of, diseases like C. diff, MRSA, staph infections, influenza, the common cold, ringworm, all of that stuff. A lot of that is prevalent in a lot of shelters, in, places where the community gathers. So if we can help to stop that, it's not that I'm not doing this to do a volunteer program, but if I can do something at a reasonable price that helps out the community, that's kind of my goal with it.
Cool. I'll jump in next. That's okay. I like to get involved with nonprofits first and foremost because of the value that you bring to our communities, right? So a lot of the ones that I get involved with, that I bring Davey into locally, are ones close to where I live in my county, because improving the environment around me is great, and the environment around everyone else as well. I also try to partner with organizations that bring value to my organization as well. So for Davey, a lot of times that is environmental organizations. For me, that is local nature conservancies, nature programs, and environmental nonprofits that just make a lot of sense for us to partner with. They bring value to me by spreading the brand name around as well. And I have a lot of fun seeing how we benefit one another. I'm in constant communication with those nonprofits to say, hey, what do you need from us? And in turn, what are you providing to me and my organization? And not in a way that is, hey, what are you bringing to me? But we have a lot of fun with it, discussing, hey, what people hang out at this nature center, that have a lot of trees on their property. Do you happen to know anyone? And oh yeah, there's Jim who lives down the street. He's got 15 oak trees that are always in need of stuff. And can you introduce us? And so I find a lot of value in that as well. And then also some of the partnerships that we have are with job readiness programs in the green industry. So one in the county that I live in, Howard County, and then one in Baltimore County, that trains folks from backgrounds that don't have a lot of exposure to the green industry into those organizations. And it creates a job pipeline for us. If you're in the labor field, your number one concern right now is finding folks to fill your seats. And so I obviously feel very good about giving people jobs, but it's also great to have a staff to do the work that we're producing. So that's how I get involved.
Oh, there's so many ways I can answer this question. Or this, and it's so Carolyn, grab the hook whenever it's necessary to pull me back. But one of I'll start with Isagenix, the company that I partnered with. They have a nonprofit called the ISA Foundation. And so much of what Isagenix does across their entire corporate footprint is so in line with what I'm looking to do with Create a Legacy. And so it's a very good fit and partnership from that aspect. But specific to the nonprofit space, the ISA Foundation, one of their primary goals is to get food, good quality food, to populations that either don't have a good source of food at all, or don't have a source of good food, quality food within their population. So that's their overarching mission at ISA Foundation. And so tied to that is my mission with Create a Legacy, is being able to show people that there is a way to be able to have food delivered to your door that's good quality food, that's going to actually make you feel better. But then in addition to that, when I really looked at the business model with the direct sales and network marketing, and there's so many companies out there that are within that space, I was fortunate, and it was because I didn't do any background. I didn't jump in with Isagenix from a strategic standpoint. It was simply, quite frankly, the grace of God that put me in touch with Isagenix. But when I looked at the business model, I realized that this is a vehicle that is available to anybody. It doesn't matter. And tying back to from the standpoint of trying to create a life on your terms and to be able to achieve your dreams and your goals for you and your family, or even multi-generations of creating a legacy. The network marketing model, and specific, I can talk specific about Isagenix, is that it's available to anybody. And when I say anybody, we don't do background checks. We don't care if, quite frankly, we don't care if you graduated high school. It doesn't matter. If you have the desire and the initiative that you want to create income, you want to do a business, you want to actually be an entrepreneur and create your own business, good network marketing companies give you a platform that's very much like a franchise. It doesn't have the buy-in or the financial investment required for most franchises, but there is a financial investment. It's for most companies, it's not very large. And when I say not very large, for Isagenix, it's $29 a year. And then also the product that you're buying, but you're consuming that product. So it's really not an investment from the standpoint of you're laying out money and you have to try to hustle to get that money back. No, you're eating. It's replacing some of your food budget. So, and you're eating high quality food. So the opportunity to be able to help people, and this ties back to our mission with Create a Legacy, is giving people an opportunity to be able to have a life, be able to break out of whatever situation they may be in. And when I talked about it's giving me the opportunity to be able to pivot my company or my family, be able to break my family from the perpetual back, just continuously generation after generation, staying within the lower middle class. And so this has given me an opportunity to be able to provide a greater financial situation for my family and for future generations. And that's available to anybody that wants to jump on board. So that, from the network marketing standpoint and from Isagenix, and then what I'm able to do with Create a Legacy, is really one of the key factors, and something my eyes are wide open and I'm constantly scanning the horizon, looking for somebody or a group that would be interested in doing this. So it's being able to help people truly change their lives and elevate their lives by being able to with this business model. But then in addition to that, it's something that truly allows me to be able to, because of the business model, gives me the freedom to be able to reach out and work with other organizations and say, okay, what is your need? What are you looking to be able to do? And it expands out to my other business ventures. So it's everything's connected, everything works together, but it's truly, I'm looking for organizations, nonprofit organizations that may have a population that they serve, that something like this would be a great opportunity for them to be able to, in addition to what the nonprofit is providing, are there other things that we might be able to do from either helping them learn how to run a business, is something that's simple, and being able to do the things necessary. Like we were talking about before everybody jumped on, when we were all together, it was talking about, it's being successful in business frequently is doing things that are somewhat repetitive and can be mundane. But if you enjoy it and you're seeing the rewards from that, you can actually be able to achieve a lot of the goals that you want to be able to do. So I hope that answers the question, and I hope that wasn't too rambly.
Great. So we have a question in the chat that is talking directly about the arts, and you've already talked a little bit, all of you have already talked a little bit about what you're looking for in a nonprofit organization. I want to table the arts just for a minute and ask you the general question: if an organization is to come and introduce themselves to you, what are you looking for in an introduction, and what makes a good introduction of a nonprofit to you and your organization, and what your personal and professional goals are?
Yeah, I'll take this one first. I, for in the chat there, I talked about how one of my clients is involved with an Annapolis theater company, and so one day I do tree work for her, and she said, "Hey, we've got a show coming up. Would you all be interested in sponsoring?" And I think that's how that's clearly the most effective way is that personal, look around and think about what resources you have a first degree of contact with, friends, family, etc. I also like really creative ways of reaching out. If you are a theater company, maybe look locally in the, close to 5 miles to that theater and say, what organizations would I like to partner with and offer them a discount on tickets. Hey, come to one of our shows, see what it's like. And, we'd love to partner with you for future sponsorships. Look around the crowd, look how many people are here, enjoying themselves, and see how far your brand on our program would go. Or if you're with another organization, let's see, one of the museums that's on here, I think Heinz Museum is one of the callers today, or offer a discounted membership to a company. Hey, if your company sponsors us, employees who show a badge can get 10% off of admission, or something like that. Because we're looking for value on our end as well. It's not just about throwing money at nonprofits and saying, all right, you take this and run with it and show me what you can get. But from a personal standpoint, we're also looking for that. So does that make sense?
Definitely. Thanks, Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in next on that. So, I think when I'm looking to work with a nonprofit, number one, I want to see how it is that they benefit the community, right? So I've been involved with a number. I was on the board for Twilight Wish for years, which was great because it directly impacted the community, and I could jump in and make a difference. Those of you who know me in person know I tend to be a little type A. So seeing my direct impact is very important to me. I like to know where the money that I'm going to donate or what I'm going to do, how it's directly, affecting the community, the nonprofit, kind of how they're structured, before I jump in. And, I know Carolyn, you and I touched on this before, but I'll bring it up. Recently, I was looking to do a joint venture with a nonprofit, right? Because I started my company in order to help the community. And so I really wanted to help to benefit, a nonprofit. And I thought, well, okay, if I partner with somebody, I want somebody that has a little bit of a social presence. That way, me as a small company, because I'm a very small company. So literally every dollar that I donate is a dollar that, is not going to my bills at home. Right. So I guard mine very, very carefully. And so I got a hold of somebody that, they really needed money. They were really looking for donations, and I said, okay, I'm having the grand opening. This is last year. I'm having the grand opening for my business, and I would love to, partner with you. I'm going to have people bring donations, monetary and other things that you need for your organization. And they were like, oh, that's great. And then I literally was ghosted by them. Never heard from them again until a few weeks later. They want to know how much money I received. And I was like, well, you didn't even show up, you know? And so now, moving forward, if I'm going to work with somebody, I need to know that they're going to be there, because I'm not just here to hand out, but I need to know kind of what they can do a little bit as well. And that they're grateful for, what we're doing. And I found that, you know, in a few places that I've looked to work, they're very interested in how much you can do for them, but the giving back, which, for me isn't a monetary thing, for me is more of a, hey, if you have a social media presence, let's do some, let's collaborate on a few posts and, do some things there, so that not that it's, hey, everybody, look what I'm doing, but that, we're getting value out of it as well. It's not, just what we can do, kind of off of what Lou said a little bit. But I don't need to, deep dive into anybody's financials or anything, but I just need to know that, I like good information on, knowing that they're a 501c3. So that way, my accountant can help me out as well. But, just knowing that what we're doing is good and what we're doing is, appreciated, because I'm usually paying somebody to go out and do treatments as well, or I'm giving money over. So that's where we sit on that.
No, I love that, Jesse. And I think that it's a good reminder for any of us, whether you're a business owner or leading a nonprofit, or maybe you're on the board and you're representing a nonprofit, the way that you present yourself is going to reflect not only on you, but on the organization. So when you have those types of experiences where, say, an organization doesn't follow through, or you don't hear from them for an extended period of time, that reflection comes back on, well, how does that organization operate, and how are they going to be serving the best needs if there's that lack of communication? And so that doesn't mean that your organization's not doing it, but it's just a reminder to be conscious of the fact that all of those things are going to contribute towards how you represent and present yourself whenever you're looking to grow these partnerships. For sure. I've got a question here from Tammy. And Tammy, can you ask your question off mute? Because I think you've got some more more context you could add to it.
Well, let's give that a try. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Just recently joined the Community Development Corporation in Beaver Falls, and I was in a fundraising meeting, and something interesting came up because I served as on a nonprofit museum, aviation museum, where we restored old planes I served there for a while. We ran into that problem as well. Not enough small victories. The scopes tend to get very large, and with nonprofits, they want to solve all the world's problems sometimes, and it's too big. So having smaller victories was something that really struck home with me, and I think that maybe for the partnership, look at those small victories first and build that confidence up. It's something that I really think I wanted to say and let everyone know that it struck home with me. So maybe it does with you as well.
Thanks, Tammy.
As a partner on that, to follow up, those small victories build confidence with us as contributing organizations. If you say, hey, can we get a $200 sponsorship for this event? And if I'm at that event and you're introducing me, or if one of my sales arborists or someone else at the event, you're introducing us to potential clients, the next time you come and say, hey, how's a $500 sound? Well, absolutely. I saw a great return on my initial investment. Let's make it happen. So those are really important, Tammy. Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you. We have a couple other questions that were submitted ahead of time. And we've all touched on this, but in more specific terms, what do you believe the value of working with nonprofits is to your business?
I'll jump in on this one because it's something that everybody experiences, whether you're a nonprofit or you're running a for-profit business. Is your biggest hurdle is obscurity. Not enough people know you. Not enough people know what you do. And so from a business owner standpoint, any opportunity that I have to be able to get my brand and get my mission of what I'm doing with my brand in front of his people, anybody. And Tammy, similar to what you were saying, it doesn't have to be a big crowd. I'm all about I'm a big proponent and practitioner of marketing and promotion. And so it's an idea of, if I can get in front of the right group of people, and if it's a small group, if a majority of that group is my target market, then yeah, I'm all in on that. But even if they're not, because so much of it is, I take the approach of like a car dealer. They run ads at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they don't think somebody's going to run out and buy a car at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they know that if they get in front of you enough times, whenever you go to make that decision to buy a car, you're going to probably pick them in the top 3 of your choices. So that being able to show a business of this is what you're going to get, or this is your exposure. You're going to be able to grow your brand, or you're going to be able to get in front of more people. And tied to like what Lou said, from the standpoint of depending on the size of the event, if it's something that, like, if you have a good working knowledge of the different businesses of your sponsors for a particular event, make it a task to make an introduction to that business owner or the rep from that business to someone else within it can either be within your nonprofit, or it can be with another business, to where you think there might be a mutually benefit of that relationship, that connection happening. That's going to have a tremendous ROI, and the good business owners are going to appreciate that. And exactly what Lou said is, like, if you make an introduction for me to somebody that I may never do business with them, but if it's simply a good relationship that I know down the line will be fruitful, the next time your event comes around, I may volunteer and go, listen, I want to double what I donated, or is there more I can do? Because that, just simply making an introduction. So it doesn't have to be like an immediate ROI. It can be something of, hey, so-and-so's here. I just wanted to introduce you guys because I think there's a great opportunity. It's networking 101. And so it's kind of one of those things of, if you view your event of one of your takeaways, or one of your goals for your event is, say, I want to introduce each person here to one other person, or my staff go introduce, you take Lou and he needs to meet, and then find who else is going to be there, whether it's another business owner or some of your attendee list, and make that introduction. And if you do that enough times, you're all of a sudden, you become a hub of networking for people, because that's truly what we want as business people. We want more people to know us and know what we do. And simply by making an introduction, so you can go through and you can announce, here's our donors, go through that list. But as a business owner, if you introduce me to one person in that at that event, or someone from your staff introduces me to someone at that event, and it could even be a follow-up later, but making that connection and introducing those businesses to other businesses or just other people is huge value, at least from my standpoint. I cherish that more than, maybe not more than money, but it's definitely, because I can't pay my mortgage with these connections. But the idea that I know my business will grow long term, and I have a long range view, so my business will grow long term by making these introductions.
And a real simple way to do that too is to introduce the sponsors to each other. That's one that I always talk to groups that I work with. Hey, who else is sponsoring this event? Because obviously they're interested in the same kinds of things that we are interested in. And if we have that shared interest, maybe we have other shared interests. So perhaps having a pre-event happy hour only for sponsors, or a certain room that sponsors can go to and get to know one another, or just introducing them. It makes it a lot easier on your end too, instead of thinking, who's going to be in attendance here? Who needs to know this person? Just introduce the sponsors. That takes care of a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think there's a ton of value in, facilitating networking, especially when it's networking that is in your specific goal as a business owner. A lot of times, I'm sure every business owner here kind of gets into the same thing, like, hey, you sponsored this, or can I count on you again this year? And it's like, okay, but I didn't really get any value for that last year. And I know you're thinking that a $250 or a $500 sponsorship isn't much. And maybe for a larger company, that's not a big one. But for a small company, it's like, oh, that's a lot. And, so I really like the idea of doing like a sponsor, like a little sponsor mixer or something, like a, private lounge or something like that. I think that's really cool. There's a couple upcoming events that I think that would be great for. Carolyn, you probably know what I'm talking about. So, but definitely like, trying to, make a connection with other business owners or with people that may be, a good connection for them, even if, as Steve said, even if it's not an immediate You know, it's not that that person has to buy from your company or you have to instantly become, you know, clients of one another, but, you know, just somebody that'll know somebody else. You know, I think that's a lot of value when it comes to those type of sponsorships.
Great. And you've all been talking a lot about these, you know, the value and then the relationships that come along. Connie asked a question in our chat of when you make personal connections, what's a good strategy for reaching out and making those personal connections?
Well, I think one of the best, I'll just jump right in because I was the last one to go. So, when we help make a personal connection for, like, I know that personally, I'm probably involved in about 5 nonprofits at the moment, give or take, depending on the day. And so I know when I'm making a connection, I like to first off, you know, get a hold of, find out what contact information they want to be shared, how they would like to be contacted, and then I'll introduce and give each other, you know, all of the information. And then, you know, a lot of times I'll follow up, hey, did you hear back from so and so? But by doing a warm introduction, like I just got involved in one recently that builds schools in Burkina Faso. And so I was able to set them up with somebody that's used to doing fundraising. I was able to, you know, give them some ideas and make some personal introductions that I feel that they found very, you know, very fulfilling there. Obviously, that's not something that, you know, I'm getting anything back for, but it's a really good organization. So it's okay to spend a little bit of time doing that. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is, you know, if you don't ask, nobody will really know. So if you have somebody that you're used to working with that's an expert networker or a sponsor, say, hey, you know, this is what we're looking for. Here are either the weaknesses or, you know, we really need to know somebody that knows how to event plan. We have no idea, you know, so by just verbalizing it and labeling it, you know, you're able to put that little reminder in somebody's head that, you know, hey, I mean, I know we're kind of all the same way, but, you know I have a whole Rolodex of like 5,000 people in my head and can easily like pick up and send and make personal introductions. But, you know, when you do that, first off, make sure that you're responding, you know, to that person, because there are a lot of times that I've had personal introductions. I respond to that person that I'm introduced to. And then again, that you just don't ever hear from them again. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's just kind of a dropped thing. So, you know, especially if somebody's looking, if you're looking for help or somebody's looking for help, like make sure that you're always responding. You know, obviously, like we can't always do it that exact moment or even that exact day, but within a couple days, I think is a good time for, you know, for a response on that. But, you know, make sure that, you know, you're getting all the contact information that you need, email, phone number, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. Knowing your numbers is really helpful when if you're a group that's coming to me, being able to say, this is the exposure that we have. If you're a theater, this is how many patrons we had last year. If you are a museum, this is how many folks came through our turnstiles last year. Or this is how the sponsors, these are the groups that are sponsoring us. So, you know, knowing exactly what value you bring to my organization is really helpful right off the bat. You know, I'm trying to think of the other groups that are on here and how you can show that, but really the exposure, you know, how many folks follow your social media accounts, how many people subscribe to your mailers, if you have those kinds of places that our logo would be on. And so that we know right from jump what kind of exposure we get by sponsoring with you. And that could be a conversation along the way as well. Just having those numbers in mind or in front of you or easily accessible for when you do run into someone would be great at expediting that relationship, if that makes sense.
Lou, and to give an example of that, I work with an organization, and I know many of our organizations here are from the culture and heritage side. And I work with a very local historical society who is currently in the process of growing. They were established a few years ago, and started thinking through this process of who are the best connections for us. And because we are so local, it is local businesses that we are looking at. And we do have a number of ways in which we can reach local businesses. We're connected to the local municipal township and their mailing lists. We're connected to a number of the different local government organizations. And so there are those opportunities in which to say, okay, if you are to sponsor us, you'll also have access to partnerships with local governments, municipalities. You'll have access to our social media exposure as well. And so knowing what those things are and the type of people that you're reaching, like I said, we know that our organization currently reaches people who are very local. So we're going for the sponsorships that will really complement that in terms of helping out those local businesses too. So having that understanding is really great going in, not only on the numbers, but on where those target markets are for you and for those other organizations.
And I'll just jump in real quick with, I hear this so much, it's almost cliche to me, but the fortune truly is in the follow-up, and it's being able to, have those follow-ups, like Jesse was talking about from the standpoint of, you reach out to somebody and they don't respond back to you. Well, as somebody working on trying to, almost having the mindset within your organization of being like, well, we're kind of at the core, we're a networking group. We kind of connect people together, and through those, we get some sponsorships, we get some membership. And so it's from the standpoint of making those connections, and, kind of back to Connie, to your question of a great thing to do when you're making an introduction to two people or two businesses is already have in your head. And of course, this takes some homework because you have to know the business as well. And you kind of have to know some of their pain points for each one. But when you make that introduction, bring up something that might be mutually beneficial for both of them. Hey, I wanted to make this introduction because, Lou to a company that they're looking to build a new building, and it's on a heavily wooded lot, and be able to say, hey, I wanted to introduce new company to Lou, because he has a company, that Davy Tree, that they will remove the right amount of trees, and they'll be able to really, even if you just pick his brain a little bit, you may not hire them, but at least pick his brain a little bit. And Lou, there's a great opportunity for you to, so you set up the relationship and where that connection is, why you're introducing them. So basically that's it right there in a nutshell, is tell them why you're introducing them. What do you think, where you think there's some synergies that can happen there? And then one additional thing on a slightly different topic is when you're approaching companies from the standpoint of reaching out to them saying, hey, would you be interested in some type of a sponsorship, or being able to donate some money or time, resource, whatever it might be. Companies that come to me, organizations that come to me, and they have it laid out. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting from the standpoint of, I know exactly what I'm getting back. I know of, okay, in something that you can build over time, year after year, is being able to say, hey, at this $250 level, we had somebody last year through an introduction that we were able to make to another sponsor. They were able to have this partnership that they are now growing each other's businesses. So you're telling a story about something that happened in the past, and being able to share that is going to entice people to want to connect and donate and say, hey, even if it's the first time that I do this, I want to just jump in and see if there's an opportunity here. So being able to go to those, to the businesses, and being able to say because you're all good at, this is what you get at $250. You get on our social media, you're going to get this, you're going to get your name on a t-shirt, you're going to get your name here. Those are all great things. But then if you can share a story of a previous donor at that level, a story that they're able to tell, share their story of their benefit. So then you're getting back into post-event, reaching out to them. Surveys are great. And depending on the size of your event, you might not be able to do this. And from a staffing thing, it may take time, and you may not have the staffing resources to do this. But cherry pick a few of the sponsors and call them up and say, what can we do better? Actually have a phone conversation with them rather than an email or a survey. Have a phone call conversation with them, and at all donor levels, have that as well, because that's going to give you information. So when you go back again the next year and you're looking to raise money for donors or sponsorship for your next event, you're going to have more knowledge and more ammunition to be able to truly build that. And it's, you guys, it's becoming a master at building relationships.
Great. And to build on what all of you have been talking about in terms of just having that information, whether that's stories or data points or demographics of those different target markets. The last next step session that we ran was all about impact management and figuring out, all right, where are those big points that you need to know, whether that's for your donors, for your stakeholders, for your organizations, programs. And so there's a number of pieces of information, and I'll stick a link to that in the chat. And I'd be happy to talk more about what that process looks like too, because that I think is setting the foundation for creating access to all of these pieces of information that you just have easily at your fingertips to be able to build these connections and relationships. I think we have time for one more question. And this is kind of a fun question, but what would you want to know about a nonprofit? So what's one thing that you don't understand about the way nonprofits work that you would like to ask a nonprofit? And I think I've asked you this question before, but just go ahead and jump in. And if any of our nonprofits here are able to provide an answer in the chat or to raise their hand and give us an answer, it's a chance to turn the tables on our panel.
I'll go. I think beyond just dollars, what value can we bring to your organization? You know, in return, I like the dollars that the relationship brings back to my company, but I also like the social benefits that it brings to the surrounding community, the personal, I'm embedded in environmental causes. So the environmental organizations that we support, I really get a lot of value out of that too. So what above the dollar value benefits are you looking for as a partner?
Yeah, I think that it kind of gets to, from the kind of adding on to that is from the standpoint of when you've really dialed in and know your why for an organization, and then you can go and say, building upon what Lou was saying, is from the standpoint of, I'm not the traditional ROI. I don't need to say, okay, I spent $1,000 on the sponsorship for this event. I got one customer and they spent $100. Well, that's because I know a lot of business people think that way. So it's, expanding on what Lou is saying is approaching it in the relationship with your sponsorship. What else do you offer? And it could be something as simple of, it's, I don't always, it's one of those things of like, you offer discount tickets, like what's kind of your go-to, here's a specific question. What's your go-to kind of non-financial offering that you go to organizations say, hey, this is what you'll be able to help us out do, or here's the value of being able to be able to get us more than just financial. So that's kind of a general question. I don't know if anybody necessarily needs to answer it, but from the standpoint of what is the additional value there? Because it's, everybody wants, ROI does not have to be financial.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, when you're running programs or looking for things like, is it going to be supported by, a team? Because there are many nonprofits out there that I've, run into that, they don't have enough internal support in order to even execute the programs that they're looking for us to fund. And so for me, a lot of times it is, do you have the manpower to be able to actually execute, this program? Like just, I'm just going to use an example because I'm very familiar with Twilight Wish, right? I don't know if anybody here is familiar with them, but Twilight Wish, you raise money to grant wishes for impoverished senior citizens. And it's typically a pretty localized, like to the county that you live in. And so I was on the board for that for years. And, so I knew that it was, if I put $500 in as a sponsor, like I could be greatly involved in that wish that was being granted. I could pick a wish that I was, that my money was directly going to, but I knew that there was going to be somebody to coordinate granting whatever wish that was, whether it was going to a baseball game or we flew somebody to a casino or something one time, or getting a hearing aid. But I know that there's, there's support within the organization to be able to do that. If they were like, hey, would you like to sponsor a wish for $500? And then you put 500 and you kind of just never hear about it again. You're like, well, where did that go? So I'm just using that as an example, but I like to know that there are, that there's actually like something in place that's going to be able to carry out. And it's not just putting money in somewhere that it may or may not work. We're not really sure. So that's one of the things I like to know.
That's great. And I think that really speaks to the point that whether you're the nonprofit organization that is putting on these services, or you're an organization that is a corporate supporter of those causes, any money that goes into your organization, and not even money, but any money, time, effort, the things that your volunteers, your donors, your sponsors put in, is all an investment within your organization, and it should be treated as such. And so that means that you use that investment to get to that certain point. And at the end of the day, all of your organizations are doing really amazing things to impact other people's lives, and to bring that out and really let that shine when you're talking to organizations will really go a long way in showing your passion and dedication and commitment to making those changes happen. So I know we're 1 minute to go, which is great. Usually we go over and we have a lot of questions. I know today was a slightly different format, but I just want to take the last minute to thank all of you for joining us, and want to ask you all to thank our wonderful panelists, Jesse, Lou, and Steve today. I don't want to speak for you, but we will send out an email after this, and we'll have their contact details so you can access information about their businesses and any questions that you have. All four of us, or I'll say all four of us, but I am definitely willing to answer, and I assume that the rest are generous with their time and contact, and are more than happy to be a good network connection for everyone who's here today. So thanks, Jesse, Lou, and Steve, and thanks everyone again for joining us for today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all. Thanks so much. Yeah.